Hi everyone, welcome to Learn Awesome. In this video, you'll learn how to debounce user input in a React app without using any third-party libraries. We'll build a search input that waits for the user to finish typing before triggering a search. Why? Because triggering a search on every keystroke is expensive in time, money, and sanity. So let's go ahead and do it. So the first step is to create a React project. So I'm going to do that first. All right, let's step into the project folder and do npm install. While installs, we are starting fresh with a new React app, and instead of using the old Create React app, we are using Vite. It's fast, modern, and lightweight. So project is now ready in just these two commands. Let's open it in Visual Studio Code. All right, here we need to start the web server for Vite. So I'm going to go to terminal and issue the command npm run dev. Let's open it. And boom, fast startup, no nonsense. Welcome to modern React. Our app is live and running. All right, let's go back to Visual Studio Code, go to source folder, app.jsx, and get rid of all the source code that we created for us as a boilerplate. And I'm going to add my own. So I'm going to type it and then I'll explain. Right, so here we got a basic UI with a text input and a preview below. Let's walk through this setup. So we are using useState to keep track of what the user types. The entire UI is wrapped in a div that uses Flexbox to center everything, both vertically and horizontally, using styles like display flex, justify content center to center vertically, align item center to center horizontally, height 100 vh to take the full screen. We also added gap 1 rem to space things out and padding to keep it from touching the edges. Then we style the input element with padding, font size, and max width so it looks clean on any screen. Right now, whatever we type shows up immediately. So let's see how it looks like. I'm going to save it, bring up the browser. No, that does not look great, and that's because the default styling Vite added is in the way. So let's fix it real quick. Okay, so I'm going to go to index CSS, delete previous stuff, and say, all right, let's see now. Yeah, looks much better. So let's try it out. So at the moment, whatever I type shows up immediately, and soon we'll see why this is a problem. So let's introduce the problem first, and then we'll introduce the fix. All right, so let's simulate the issue. For that, let me bring up the DevTools and type React Debounce. You see every key press I do, it's logged to the console. That's every single letter triggering a search. Not great if you're calling an API or updating expensive components. So that brings us to the definition of debounce. Debouncing means wait a bit before doing the thing. If you keep typing, nothing happens. But once you pause, boom, we act. This is perfect for search boxes, autosaves, and analytics, making sure you are not flooding your server, database, or anything you're communicating with junk inputs like D, DE, DEB, etc., which makes no sense. All right, time to introduce the bounce logic in our code. So here goes. So here's the magic. We are using useEffect, which runs whenever something changes, in our case, whenever query changes, because it's in the dependency array. Inside the effect, we start a timer using setTimeout. It says wait 500 milliseconds and then update the bounce query. So if the user stops typing, the timer finishes and the bounce query gets updated. But if the user keeps typing, we don't want to stack up timers. That would be chaos. That's where clear timeout with timeout ID argument comes in. It cancels the previous timer before starting a new one. So there's always just one active timer. And here's the key part. The return statement inside useEffect, that's a cleanup function. In React, every time the useEffect hook reruns, like when a query changes, it first runs the cleanup function we returned earlier. That's how we cancel the old timer before starting a new one. It's like saying, hey, before we start a new timer, let's cancel the old one. This pattern ensures that only the latest typed value gets debounced, no matter how fast the user types. And a quick side note, if you're wondering how the set timeout callback knows about the latest value of query, even though it runs later after 500 milliseconds, that's thanks to JavaScript feature called a closure. A closure means that a function remembers the variables from the scope where it was created. So even after the effect finishes, the callback still has access to query variable. React's use effect plus set timeout rely on closures behind the scene. If you want to understand closures better, check out our video about closures and debounce in plain JavaScript. I'll leave link in the description. In that video, we thoroughly explain the concept of closures with examples, so do check that out if there is any confusion left. Okay, now let's extend our implementation by using the debounced query and simulating a API or database search. All right, so here we are simulating a search. We just log to console and update the screen when the debounced query changes. So let's see what happens if I type really fast in our screen now. So if I again type debounce search, so you noticed I typed really fast, but only one search triggered after I stopped trying. That's debounce in action, saving time, bandwidth, and possibly your API budget. So while you consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel, let me make one more adjustment. So this is the same thing which you saw in app.jsx, but I have cleaned things up by extracting the logic into a reusable custom hook called useDebounce. Now you can debounce any value, a search, a filter, even a window resize event. So let me show you how to use that. So if I go to app.jsx and here I'm going to comment out this use effect and replace it with. Let me properly explain. So here we made our code cleaner and easier to reuse by creating a custom React hook. We call it useDebounce. So this entire thing is now a React hook, which can be used anywhere in the application. Custom hooks are just regular functions, but they let you extract and reuse React logic, like useState and useEffect, across multiple components. By convention, we start their name with use. So here, instead of writing our debounce timer logic directly into the component, we moved it into a separate file, useDebounce.js. It takes in any value and a delay and returns a debounced version of that value just like before. Inside, we still use set timeout, clear timeout, and use effect, but now it's all wrapped up in a clean, reusable hook. Then in app.jsx, we simply call useDebounce query 500, and it handles everything behind the scenes. This makes our component smaller, easier to read, and much easier to reuse in other parts of our app or future projects. And that's how you debounce in React. Clean, simple, and beginner friendly. If this helped, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more React tips that won't melt your servers. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.